Hi, Vincent. We're live.
Hi, hold on one second. Oh shit.
What's happened?
Hold on, I have to come back. I have to talk to you from something different. Hold on. Hold
Okay.
on.
Hi.
Hello?
Hello
Hi.
again, Vincent.
Yes, yes, I'm back. Yes.
Okay.
Um yeah, there's something wrong with my headphones on some I can't talk on StreamYard with my headphones because they have anti-noise canceling and for some reason StreamYard interferes with it and makes it sound all weird and stuff like that.
hmm Well, Amanda's here and says hi. So
Hi
that was.
Amanda, how are you?
So what?
I think Amanda sometimes sees my new channel. Nobody's been coming to my new channel. I'm not getting and like I've been like thrown off YouTube like 3 or 4 times, and every time I started regaining like people after a while. But this time, either they're purposely, well, they are purposely keeping my subs down because like it's been stuck at the same number forever, and and I don't think they give out notifications because people tell me they don't give out notifications. They really don't want me on YouTube at all. They don't want anyone listening to me or anything like that. So,
Mm, I mean, well, as you know, my account has been deleted, but my secondary and tertiary accounts are still there, and this account is still up. But I suppose it's only a matter of time. It's before it all goes. So, um, but anyway, I think it's still useful to talk, and I timestamp um, conversation, so at least I retain a written record of what was said, and I think that's the most important thing because it's more quickly searchable. If you have notes rather than just streams that just go on forever with no timestamps. So I think timestamps are important in a way because nobody's going to watch a stream that is 8 hours long and they're clueless as to what it's all about.
yes, no, I know it's hard. It's hard. No, but also people, I mean, you know, since since I started reading and showing documentaries and stuff like that, people aren't as interested in my channel. But I've been learning a lot. I mean, I've learned more. I've gotten more work done these past few months just reading and showing documentaries and then writing than I did when I would just go on and talk about nothing or just talk, just have, just talk and 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 talk. Um, so at least I have more prowess that way. I'm gaining more prowess. I mean, I've learned so much, and I'm reading a lot more than I ever used to because I can't. When I was young, when I was in my 20s, I read so many books. I think I got exhausted of reading. I think I just got tired out of reading,
hmm
and I can hardly read anymore. But when I have a show on and I know somebody might be listening, it encourages me to read. So, at least it gets me that done. And when I started doing the Jehovah's Witnesses, I started getting more viewers because there's a lot of people interested in that topic. And I did get more viewers then. But
So would you like to tell us what you've learned? Because I think, a lot of knowledge, yes, you read all those books, but if you can't explain what you read about, or,
well, it is repetitive. Last two times I came on here, we talked about Mormons, Christian Science, Jehovah's Witness, pyramidology. That. It all started back when I started reading Alan Cecil. That was the first thing I started reading with you, and you did enjoy that. And then I read the Noahide Code by Alan Cecil. I read You Gentiles. I read Rabbi Harry Watton, A Program for Jews. Different things like that. And, I've just been going through these books and documents and things like that. And in the Mormon one, I did a lot of documents. But,
and what have you discovered?
Well, that was all about Judeo-Freemasonry and its connections to Mormons, Christian Science, Jehovah's Witness, and Adventism is basically what I was researching and what I'm still researching. And then once I'm done with Adventism, I'm going into esoteric Islam and Freemasonry and Nation of Islam and certain aspects of regular Islam and Freemasonry. But, which is interesting because Muslims tend to have problems with Freemasons because they think they're linked to Jews. But then when you go into their esoteric circles, they're all wrapped up with Freemasonry. Freemasonry latches on to everybody's mysticism. If you have any
because it's a secret society.
Yes, and if you have any kind of mysticism going on, the Freemasons will try to infiltrate that and get themselves in, or the mystics will be interested in Freemason, like Elijah Muhammad, who's the second founder of Nation of Islam, wrote a whole book on Freemasonry and how Freemasonry describes the black man's peril and all this other kind of stuff.
So was he approving or disapproving of Masonry, this Elijah Muhammad?
I think he was approving of it. I think he was trying to say that the Freemason story is the story of the black man. That's basically what I picked up from it so far.
Oh, you're reading his book now, are you?
No, not yet. No. Right now I'm reading a book called Seventh Day Adventism Renounced, and I'm doing the Adventism. I'm doing my part on Adventism, but when that's done, I'm gonna do Islam.
Right. So you know that Luke Ford's father, Desmond Ford, was a theologian of the Seventh Day Adventists.
Yes.
Do you know that? Right.
Yeah.
And do you know why he got into trouble?
Well, I know
Because
he started. Well, what did he question? He questioned something.
well, I know he was on the wrong side of some intense theological debate amongst Adventists, and I'm afraid I've forgotten what it was. I actually looked it up, and then there was a moment when I went, "Aha! This is a website that finally explains it in a way that I can understand." But I'm afraid I've forgotten. So I wonder if Luke himself even knows, because it's just so complicated. But basically, with the Seventh Day Adventists, I think there is a prediction that the Messiah will come, and then all the Seventh Day Adventists, went and packed their bags and waited for the Messiah to come or something, and he didn't, and it was called the Great Disappointment, and then they just had to work out why, what they got wrong. I think that's a story, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Well, that happened a long time ago. That was back in the 1840s. That they thought the Messiah was going to come, and then he didn't. And then a lot happened after that, and there was lots of debate and lots of sects and schisms. The only one that really survived. There's still other Adventists today, but the only major Adventist organization is the Seventh Day Adventist organization, and yeah, they're the only ones that made it and are left around. And I don't know what kind of theological debates they have. Maybe it was over. I know that they had problems with the Trinity for a while, but now they're Trinitarian since 1931. and they worked with Hitler very closely. The Seventh Day Adventist Church in Germany. They're criticized for that
Sorry,
because
they worked with Hitler, did they? Did you say?
they did. Yes, they did in Nazi Germany. They were very partial towards the Nazis in Germany, and
Right.
it was the German church that did it. So I guess in Adventism, no, there is a central headquarters in Adventism. There is, but it was being done by the German churches, and the idea was that the main headquarters in America said nothing about it. Like, they allowed, the Hitler was, the Nazis were publishing in Seventh Day Adventist magazines, and the church never said anything about it or did anything about it, and just let it all happen. And the Seventh Day Adventists were ratting out Jewish members and things like that. It got pretty bad.
They were doing what to Jewish members?
They were ratting them out. They were, letting the Gestapo know that there were Jews in the Seventh Day Adventist Church.
To get the Gestapo to pick them up and
Yeah,
put them
yeah,
away.
yeah. They
Right.
went pretty far. The Seventh Day Adventist Church went pretty far in its helping the Nazis, but so did the Mormons a little bit. They were kind of persecuted, but kind of not. They kind of worked with Hitler, but kind of didn't. Jehovah's Witnesses and
It was the same with the Roman Catholics, though, wasn't it? Because I mean, I
well,
remember.
it was a little bit different. And then the Jehovah's Witnesses went so far as to try to become friends with Hitler, but he didn't like them. And Jehovah's Witnesses are like, oh, we oppose the Nazis. They only opposed the Nazis after the Nazis didn't take their peace treaty from them. And they offered up this kind of like alliance, and Hitler said no, or the Nazis said no, and then they turned against them. But no, the Jehovah's Witnesses had halls decorated with Nazi flags and everything, and gave speeches, trying to get close to the Nazis. The only people who really seemed to really in that group who did not get involved with the Nazis and who were purely persecuted and really had no blame were the Christian Scientists. Um, they weren't like that.
Which is what Mary Baker Eddy,
Yes,
that one.
yeah,
Okay.
Mary Baker Eddy.
Uh-huh.
Yes, Mary Baker Eddy. And they didn't. So I have the blog hitlerandthetrinity.blogspot.com, which last time you were interested in going on, but I had nothing up there. But hitlerandthetrinity.blogspot.com is up and running, and I go through the Trinity in Nazi Germany with positive Christianity, Freemasonry, Theosophy, Mormons, Jehovah's Witness, Christian Science, and Seventh Day Adventist. And basically, I was saying that I don't really think that positive Christianity, even though it was anti-Trinitarian, I don't think it had any Noahide connection, because, they basically went after Freemasons and other Freemason-linked cults.
I was reading something about the Freemasons, and there is a reference saying, "Oh, the Freemasons go way back to the time of Moses, and Moses was the original Mason because he came down from Mount Sinai with the tablets." Have you come across this story yet?
Yes, there's different. Some people say the first Mason was Moses. A lot of them say the first Mason was Noah. Noahide. So Freemasonry used to focus in its early days a lot on Noah, but then they would reenact Noah and they would talk about Noah, but Noah got fucked in the ass by his son, and so that kind of made people squeamish, really, to talk about. It just became embarrassing to
Uh,
really.
Okay, but I was thinking. Actually, I was thinking of Jen Sharf, Church of Entropy, who said she had created a religion, and she was always on about her oral tradition, and it seems to me that because Noah didn't have anything written, God said, well, these forgetful humans, they can't remember to pass anything on properly through their oral tradition. They need something written, so I'll give them the Torah, and that was what he did. And then and he gave them to the Jews, and then the Jews, well, they couldn't do a decent job of it, and so he gave them to the Muslims. And the Muslims are pretty hopeless too. So I guess we're all going to be punished. Because
Well,
I think you keep have I think we have to refer back to the Jews because the originators of all this sort of scripture and God of Israel and all that. So whether we like them or not, we have to refer to their scripture and their understanding of God. And I'm afraid Christians, it's like they are disordered, right? I mean, because the entire premise is wrong. It's like, well, what do Christians do? They worship Jesus, who, what happened to Jesus? He was crucified. What was he crucified for? Blasphemy. And it's like, well, why would, why should people who want to worship God and please God be worshiping somebody who blasphemed against God? It's like they have no explanation. I mean, the only way they can get out of it is say, "Oh, but it's true that Jesus is God," and But it's like, well, prove it. Where does it say that? You just made it up. I mean, their history is just full of events that show that they made it up. The Council of Nicaea, they couldn't agree, and there was schism between the Arians and the Trinitarians, and the Edict of Thessalonica, before, because at first they said, we're going to tolerate we're going to tolerate Christians, which was basically what Constantine did, because before that Christians were persecuted. So he passed an edict saying we're not going to persecute Christians anymore. And then when he died, his son tried that out for a bit, and when his son died, they decided to persecute any kind of Christian who wasn't a Trinitarian. So all these events are evidence of Christians basically making it up as they go along. So in Europe, they managed to obtain totalitarian control by basically burning any subject of any Christian monarch at the stake for denying the divinity of Jesus. And then all these Europeans crossed over to cross the Atlantic to get to the New World. In the New World, they thought, well, the stupid king in England can't tell us what to do anymore. We're going to have religious freedom, and this is where America comes in. Just rejecting this whole idea of Christianity, which can only be enforced by horrible punishments, cruel and unusual punishments of burning heretics at the stake. So I think that's a narrative that is easy to understand and which they can't deny. It's not like trying to, I don't know, prove God exists or whatever. And then you can ask the Jews for confirmation. It's like, and if you ask the Jews, it's like, yeah, we take idolatry very seriously. Don't you know the story of the golden calf? And yeah, and we know that Moses executed 3,000 Jews who worshipped the golden calf. So and it's in the Torah that idolatry attracts a penalty of death, and so does blasphemy, and that was what Jesus was found guilty of by the Sanhedrin. I mean, that's a Christian narrative. I mean, if you ask Jews, they'll say we have no record of anyone called Jesus, just no record of any of this stuff at all. And this, I think, is also an important area of research, because it was Rabbi Yaron Reuven who said there's no such thing as Jesus. We slagged him off and said his mother was raped by a Roman soldier called Pandera. But basically in our recorded history, and they're supposed to write down everything because they're just basically obsessive about it. There is no record of Jesus, of anyone called Jesus, and he and Yaron Reuven also said, I mean, the closest thing that we have to Jesus is somebody called Yeshua and somebody called Matei, and then there was a whole bunch of names that didn't match any of the apostles. So, and he said, well, we really haven't got anything. Um, yeah, and we would record it because we record, everything obsessively because, we think we're such special magic people and whatever happens to us is significant. But, in the case of Jesus, we have no record. And the person most closely fitting this was somebody called Yeshua, and who was associated with somebody called Matei, which I guess would be Matthew, if they were indeed these people. And then the record is that they were stoned. They were stoned. So they weren't even crucified. They were stoned. So it's all a mystery and all a puzzle. And the day before yesterday, Khalid was talking to this Christian called Teo, and you know what the Muslims say about Jesus is like, yes, we acknowledge him as a prophet of God, we acknowledge the virgin birth, but we don't think he died on the cross. It only appeared that he died on the cross, but God lifted him, directly to heaven or something like that, and so this I think is a puzzle. It's like, well, what's the point of the story in the Quran? What is it supposed to prove? And I think it's supposed to expose the hypocrisy of Christians, because if you went up to a Christian and said, oh, did you know that Muslims don't think Jesus died on the cross? I mean, the Christians will get really angry and disappointed, and with the implication that they want him to die on the cross, otherwise their sins would be unforgiven or whatever that they think. And that's when the Muslim can expose the hypocrisy of Christians and say, you're supposed to love Jesus, but you want him to die. You can love Jesus, you can call Mary a chaste woman, but you prefer to believe this cock and bull story, when actually you also have the chance of salvation if you become Muslim, and you don't have to hate Jesus the way Jews do. You don't have to insult Mary the way Jews do and call her a slut, or a rape victim. So basically, the belief system of Muslims, caters for Christians. Because obviously it would be terrible, for Christians who've been, worshiping Jesus for 1600 years to think that he was really a blasphemer. So with the narrative in the Quran, they can still think of him as a respected prophet of God, and his mother is as a virgin, without doing terrible violence to their beliefs that have lasted 1600 years. So when you put this to them, they still say, no, we still want to believe that Jesus died for our sins, and whatever. Then the Muslim can say, well, you're hypocrites. You don't really love Jesus. You just want him to sacrifice. You want him as a human sacrifice. The way you'd like a lamb to be slaughtered to pay for your sins. So I mean, I think that gets the Christians good and proper, which is I don't think the Muslims even understand, because if you listen to that exchange, it was 90 minutes. I tried to listen to all of it.
What exchange was this?
Sorry,
what exchange was this?
This was between Khalid and Teo, which took place on Wednesday. So you can see that, or you can view it on his channel. And then basically it was Teo talking about Jonah, and I thought, what has Jonah got to do with any of this? And apparently it was about Jonah was supposed to have died and he was resurrected, and I thought, well, actually Lazarus was resurrected, and nobody thinks he's God. So that didn't really make sense. And then there was this really long-winded discussion about um, Jesus on the cross, and some so the Roman soldier um, pushing his spear in, and out came blood and water. And I thought that's neither here nor there. It doesn't prove anything. Um, I mean, the proof is really what Christians want to believe. So Christians are supposed to love Jesus, and the Muslim can say, well, this is the happy ending of your precious Jesus. He didn't die on the cross. God lifted him directly up to heaven. This is a narrative you should prefer if you claim to love him, but actually, looking at your faces, you're angry and disappointed that he wasn't sacrificed to die for your sins. So really, you don't love Jesus. You're just treating him like some human sacrifice, and you want him dead so that your sins will be forgiven. I mean, this is what Muslims should have been saying to Christians, but for some reason they can't bring themselves to do it. I
Well,
mean, I
they're
don't know.
cowardly. They're cowardly and they're stupid. And to be honest with you, I think that concept. I think the whole concept is too deep for Muslims to even attack because Muslims are just not that deep. And I think that like why? How long has Islam been around? For 1,400 years. Like, how much polemic have they really made against Christianity? Even today, they're all over the West, and when they talk, they hardly ever talk about the Trinity. They hardly ever sit there and go on and on. I mean,
Well,
there was
they do, to
there
be
was
fair, they do in Speaker's Corner, but it doesn't really work because the Christians there only pretend to believe. You see, I mean, there's just so many layers and layers of lies. And of course, I don't, the Pope doesn't believe. I mean, here he pretends to believe because he wants his job as Pope, and neither does the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is the leader of the second most powerful church in the world, or maybe the most powerful church in the world, because of the idea of WASP supremacy. I'm going to assume that WASP supremacy began when the Americans defeated the Spanish in the Spanish-American War in 1898. So the Americans won. They kicked the Spanish out, and that was when WASP supremacy began. So I mean, so maybe technically the Anglican Church is the most powerful church in the world, because even in America, Catholics were kind of looked down on. JFK, he's president. Oh, but he's Catholic. Should we allow that? It's that kind of idea, right? But I'm saying it was the Protestants who won the wars of the Reformation, which began 500 years ago, right? Because I mean, the wars of the Reformation was basically about, should the kings of Europe, the Christian kings of Europe, obey the Pope? Because they were fed up with being, kicked around by him, and then they thought, well, he hasn't got an army, he can't really, attack us and do anything mean to us. I mean, for the English, yes, I mean, the Pope could tell the Spanish, who were at the time the most powerful um, kingdom in Europe, to come and attack the English, like the Spanish Armada, but they failed, and eventually the British Empire superseded the Spanish Empire. So basically, the Catholics have lost, and really the most powerful church in the world, it must be the Anglican Church. But if you talk to any Englishman, they don't believe in it. They just, they mock their own religion. It's like, well, you know, I I don't know. I mean, it's just such a mess. And the thing is, technically, if you're not confirmed, if you haven't undergone a confirmation ceremony, you can't be called a Christian. Otherwise, anybody can call themselves a Christian. Anybody who goes into a church and claims to believe it. But these ceremonies were important and actually fought over. Have you heard of the Anabaptists?
yes, the Anabaptists. What was their story?
Well, okay, they were mocked for being the people who wanted to be baptized again, because, as all the infants of all the subjects of Christian kingdoms were baptized at birth because they were frightened into it, and they didn't really have a choice because But anyway, the Anabaptists were saying, well, we were just infants. We didn't agree to all this, Trinity stuff. We want to be asked properly if we really believe in it, because it's all a bit, a bit much to expect us to believe in all that. And so, and I think the confirmation ceremony was a kind of gesture of appeasement to these people. So at least there was a confirmation ceremony that you're prepared for. If you're female, they kind of make it into a kind of bridal thing, so it's all pretty and whatever. And then the old-fashioned way was the bishop would come and put his hands on your head and bless you and whatever. And interestingly, for the Orthodox Church, it's a two-in-one ceremony called chrismation. So basically, the Orthodox patriarch would or priest, I don't know, they would dip the infant in the water, and then wrap its feet up in I don't know, ointment and whatever. But it's a sort of two-in-one ceremony called chrismation. So because basically the Russians didn't want to be troubled by all these uh, grown up Christians saying, "Oh, we never agreed to all this stuff." So I think that had a political reason. And the Russians and the Greeks just said, well, we're not going to be having this debate with adult Christians, questioning the faith. We're just going to, make them Christian, and in a one-off ceremony. But there are other clues as well. So I mean, I was talking to this woman who's basically Scandinavian, and said, and she was complaining about, oh, in Iceland we're just automatically registered as Lutheran, but we're not even ours. We're not, but that is a hangover of this idea that if you if you're a subject of a Christian king, you have to follow his religion and you have no choice. And if you want to argue about it, you might end up being burnt at the stake until they stop doing it, of course. But that was the idea. So the bargain with all these European monarchs with the Pope was that the Pope will say, we will support your divine right to rule, and we will even help you because we've got all these clever cardinals who'll come and help you govern your kingdom. And the bargain is that you and the souls of your subjects will be considered Christian, and that is the source of the power of the Catholic Church. And you can imagine these barbarian kings, and they were barbarians at the time, because yes, Rome was very civilized, but Britain, was they had kings, but they could barely read, and because the kings were Vikings, and they just couldn't read, and they were barbarians. But obviously, after a few generations of learning Greek and Latin, under the tutelage of the cardinal, whatever, they eventually they got a few ideas of their own, and that was what kicked off the wars of the Reformation. But okay, I know this is not what Christians understand their history to be, but that must be how it was.
But I didn't. Well, yeah, Christians are going to put up a history that's not as asinine as what really happened, and you know,
Yeah, because it was just a series of corrupt bargains. So you can imagine this barbarian king, like, oh, we have Celtic Christianity, and we've got this offer from these Roman Catholics, in Rome, the eternal city where our former conquerors came from. This argument about when Easter was supposed to fall. There's actually a movie about it. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was all about, oh, shall we be Celtic Christians or shall we be Catholics? And they decided to go for the, glamorous version of Christianity, you know, sourced from the eternal city that is Rome. And of course, it was irresistible for these barbarian kings. These, Irish. Yeah, I mean, uh, they. I mean, okay, okay, that's my theory. There probably isn't a book about it, confirming my theory, but that must have been how it was. So when all these Europeans moved across to the New World, naturally, I don't think it was about no taxation without representation. Yes, for the ordinary people, it was something like that, because nobody likes paying taxes, customs, excise, whatever. But for the founding fathers who were enlightened men, I'm sure their very souls rebelled against the idea of being forced to believe that Jesus is God. I mean, they can't win the argument. That's why they all run away from theological debates, because what they did was, oh, shut up about, denying the Trinity and saying it's idolatry. All you get burned at the stake. So shut up. And oh yes, and this was what John Calvin did. He had Michael Servetus, a Spanish doctor and theologian, burnt at the stake for denying the Trinity in Geneva. And you think, well, what's so special about John Calvin? I mean, John Calvin is known for being the Christian who said, well, for us Christians, it's okay for us to practice a bit of usury as long as the interest is not too high. That was what he was so popular about, not his sort of predestination and I don't know what was it called, tulip, all those uh, Calvinist doctrines that are so difficult to remember and understand. Um, so so that was what he did. But Chris, Europeans don't understand their history that way. You can only learn about it through thinking, oh right, so John Calvin was the one who said lending and borrowing money on interest is okay, because Martin Luther said absolutely not. We're not going to practice usury ever, ever, ever. So and after Calvin said it was okay for the Dutch. Remember, he's basically the guy whom the Dutch relied on to say that usury was okay. I mean, we don't have to. Yes, Calvin was French, but the French being already secular. I mean, okay. So basically, the French having killed their king, just they didn't have to bother with pretending to be Christian, but the Dutch, still had to pretend to be Christian. And they wanted to trade and they wanted to practice usury. And once Calvin said it was okay to practice usury, the Dutch did, and they prospered. And usury is also very good for financing imperial wars, because if you do it properly, then you don't get inflation and high food prices and all the things that we have now to piss off your population, who can't see the point of your stupid imperial war. So that's how Europeans you know got their acquired their empire, through usury and through war finance. And Jews have been really, hypocritical about it, all confused. Okay, I mean, I'll be generous, and they'll be saying, well, okay, we're not allowed to practice usury amongst ourselves, but we can certainly practice it on Gentiles. So, and they did. And it's only Islam that says nobody at all, Jew or Gentile, is to practice usury. And it's like, yeah, or all these Christians who complain about banker Jews and whatever. It's like, well, you can get rid of usury by converting to Islam. And in fact, Hitler wanted to get rid of usury, because if you read Mein Kampf, you'll see that he wanted to abolish the stock exchange. Because the Germans really got their fingers burned because of the Wall Street crash and hyperinflation and everything. So Hitler was saying we have to get rid of usury, because this is how Jews control us. And the stock market is an international casino. We're going to get rid of that. But he couldn't really. He just banned it for ordinary Germans. But of course he wanted to finance his own imperial wars against Russia and the other rival countries in Europe. So that was what he did. So he couldn't give it up. I mean, yeah, I guess the only way he could give it up was to convert to Islam, which maybe he should have done, um, because that might have worked better for him.
Well, he supposedly liked Islam better than Christianity. That's what I heard, that he said that. Yeah. He said something like, oh, why did it have to be Christianity, passive Christianity? Why couldn't it have been militant Islam that took over Europe? And, I know he made some kind of comment like that.
Yes, he did. He did. There's quite a good table talk entry on Wikipedia, with him saying all those anti-Christian things, and the thing is, Christianity is very difficult to justify if you can't really torture people and threaten people and burn them at the stake. It's very difficult to explain. In fact, the best they can do is that it isn't idolatry to worship Jesus if he is indeed God. And then they run out of the room before you ask, how is Jesus God? I mean, a few of them I've talked to that, oh, it says in Genesis and, all the other, verses of the Old Testament that Jesus is God. But obviously the Jews don't agree. They use Isaiah and Jeremiah, and it doesn't even make sense, but that sort of read into it something about, the paraclete and, that kind of stuff. But obviously the Jews don't agree, and in a way, they are the ultimate authority. It's like, well, it's our scripture, so and you can't force us to agree with your interpretation of it, because it's our scripture, and obviously, I mean, if you read the book by Joseph Atwell called Caesar's Messiah, or there's a documentary. I don't know if you've seen it. Have I mentioned it to you?
Yeah, that seems a bit far-fetched to me, though, that Rome manufactured Christianity and there's not a scrap of evidence left of any kind of engineering. That I don't really buy that. I mean, I don't know. I think that Europeans made up a lot of stuff, but I don't necessarily believe there was like a centralized Roman propaganda machine doing that.
It is. I methey his name was Virgil. He wrote the Aeneid. And if you read it, and I did read it because I did Latin, you will see that they did a story about Aeneas, who came from Troy and settled in Italy, and eventually won all the wars and became Roman. That is part of this Roman propaganda exercise. And the Georgics too is Roman propaganda to say how wonderful, how great Rome is. I mean, well, that's also a very good Wikipedia entry. But the glory of Rome and all that, it's in the Aeneid, it's in the Georgics. And the Georgics is about farm and land and blood and that sort of thing. And bees, bees working together, being group solidarity, group cooperation, and all that. So it's already there. So yes, the Romans did do it, and also, I mean, why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't they do it? And the other interesting thing is that Pontifex, which is still the title of the Pope in Latin, was the title of the chief priest before Rome became Catholic. So basically, the priesthood of Rome were really clever people who, were obviously literate. They understood psychology. They, knew how to, present certain rituals. Oh, I don't know, we're reading, I don't know, the birds formation. I mean, they have all these sort of clever ways of presenting advice to the king in a way that has a kind of what do you call it, deniability, plausible deniability, so they can say yes and no at the same time. Like, oh yes, it's bad news, but I'm not bringing it to you. It's God telling you this. It's not me. So don't hurt me. I'm just your chief priest. I'm just giving you your message. So don't shoot the messenger. But according to my priestly arts and powers of interpretation, it means this. So go to war or don't go to war or something like that. But there's an enormous amount of psychology that goes into it, which of course they're not going to mention to us. But all this fighting over interpretations of certain verses in the Bible is quite telling. William Tyndale, who was burnt at the stake for translation issues. I mean, he was actually, Henry VIII had him burnt at the stake because he couldn't, I don't know, he wouldn't use a word, or I don't know, I actually can't remember, but anyway, it's on record that he was burnt at the stake for translation issues. And yes, once upon a time, they didn't even want the Bible to be translated. What if they get sort of difficult questions that they couldn't answer? I mean, I used to think that Sermon on the Mount was a thing that they didn't want to answer because it's such nonsense. I've read it so many times because Jay Walker was going on and on about how wonderful it was and whatever. And when I read it, I was just astounded at the nonsense that it was. It doesn't say anything.
What was this? What did you say?
Sermon on the Mount. Sermon on the Mount. Just drives me crazy every time I read it. I mean,
Really?
that's the distillation of Christian wisdom, isn't it?
Well, everyone says Christianity boils down to love God with all of your heart and love your neighbor as yourself, right? Those are the two rules of Christianity.
That's from the Old Testament, right? It's either from Deuteronomy or the Leviticus, because that's the Shema. That's also that's in Judaism, and it's called the Shema. So it's not even originally Christian. Okay, maybe the seven deadly sins is a Christian collection of sins. But I mean, as Rabbi Tovia Singer says, what's true in the New Testament is not new, and what's new in the New Testament is not true. That's what he said. And oh yes, and the Jefferson Bible. Now that I'm talking to an American, I mean, the Jefferson Bible is basically the red letter Bible, right? I mean, you know what the red letter Bible is?
No, what's that?
It's basically what Jesus said. It's not what Paul said. In his epistles to the Corinthians, the Romans, the Ephesians, the Colossians, the Galatians, etc. It's just what Jesus said. What Jesus was reported by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to have said, and that is basically the Jefferson Bible. And Jefferson, I guess, was trying to make the point that, what Christians believe, etc. Well, most of it is not by Jesus, and these are the only bits by Jesus in my Jefferson Bible, and the rest is not by Jesus, so ignore it.
Yes, I am disappointed in Muslims and that I wish they were causing more ideological problems for Christians and that um
I
they're
guess they're still
they're
scared.
so they're soft on the New Testament. They don't go running around saying the New Testament is like some uh fake book. They don't get so nasty as that with Christians. They're very they wear kid gloves with everybody. And when it comes to these types of things, they're scared to offend Jesus. They're scared to offend Mary. I would like Christians to start having mental breakdowns over these inconsistencies. But Muslims, I'm sorry, they just don't have the oomph. They're not, I'm sorry, but these people are not, Islam is not very intellectual. So it's like they
It
don't have
is,
the
but
intellectual.
it is actually quite intellectual. I mean, to be fair, it's just that the Muslims are not that intellectual. I just think if Jews would only read the Quran, they'd make much more of it than the Muslims themselves do. You know, it's just that they just haven't got the mind for it or the tradition for it. But rabbis, it's like I guess if you're a rabbi, it's kind of like you're a law student. You know, if you do it properly.
Well, but
But I
why,
mean, a lot
why
of
do
these.
rabbis have to do it for them? Look, Judaism is the most intellectual, and that's why Jews are the most intellectual, and that's why they're the most studied and read because their religion fosters not that okay, there's things much more intellectual than Judaism. Judaism is not the most intellectual thing on earth, but of the three religions that exist, Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, Judaism is the most intellectual. And then after that comes Christianity. And they're second rate. Christians are second rate scholars. And then after that comes Islam, and they're third rate scholars because look, Islam is dumbed down Judaism. Christianity has some of that white creativity in it, in that it's a little bit more lawless, it's a little bit more free, uh, and stuff like that. And it at least has that kind of freedom in it. And when you have freedom in your system, people are going
You
to
go
think,
wrong because you
well, I know,
invent
but
all
people are
kinds of
going to think
things and
all
then
kinds of
nobody
things.
believes it in the end. Okay, I think Judaism is so strong because it's like, they're so definite about it. Idolatry, death; blasphemy, death; break the Sabbath, death. So even if they don't do it, they know they're not supposed to do it. And then the other thing is that the Maimonides and has basically codified Judaism to such a degree that it's quite easy to remember. It's sort of, we're not supposed to believe that God has a body, and it's like, yeah, to the extent that Jews have to ignore the actual literal word of the Torah because there are all these sort of descriptions of Moses being so afraid of God that he didn't dare look directly at God, and he only dared to look, peek through his fingers when God was moving away. It's that kind of description that could be a reason for Jews to think, oh, so what is this? Moses saw the backside of God whereas he was moving away. It's that kind of thing. But Maimonides, said no. We can't think of God as having a backside and moving away because we can't see him, and it's all, I don't know, metaphor and analogy and whatever, right? So it is the contribution of sages like Maimonides and the others that give Jews their identity. Because if you just read the Torah, on its own, it wouldn't make that much sense. So it needs to be codified, and this, we have to thank, sages like Maimonides. And it's like Christianity not codified at all. which is why, if you ask Christians, like, hey Christian, what are the principles of Christianity, they wouldn't be able to answer you. They might say the Ten Commandments. It's like, no, it's just Jewish, right? But
No,
also,
there's only two: that love, 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 love. Love is the law.
okay, is that how it's understood by Jehovah's Witnesses?
Well, I mean, amongst all Christians, there's really only two laws: love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. Those are the two laws of Christianity. And like, the,
But that's Jewish.
no, it's not. Well, I mean, maybe that is, but I mean, they
Love
got
thy
rid of.
neighbor as yourself is
Well,
in,
they
in
got rid of any
Deuteronomy.
kind of. They got rid of all kinds of. They got rid of punishments for, you're no longer okay in Christianity. Well, I don't know. The thing, Christians are so fucking fucked up. Are they used to kill idolaters for being idolaters, and now they don't. And they used to kill heretics, and now they don't. And are Christians supposed to kill heretics or not? I mean, I don't even know at this point, because Christianity is set up in such a way it can be whatever you want it to. You want to kill pagans, kill pagans. You want to let them free, let them free. You want to allow blasphemy, allow blasphemy. You don't. Like, it's just they just kind of, whatever, any scholar can come along of Christianity and make a new
Make something
Christianity.
up. Yes. So really, I mean, if you want something concrete to protect your rights, it would have to be Islam, because Islam allows freedom of belief, but it's very firm on the other things that you shouldn't do: no usury, no gambling, no, you know. So at least you kind of have an identity, um, an understanding. Like, if you're Muslim, I'm not supposed to eat pork, not supposed to gamble, not supposed to you know drink alcohol, and supposed to fast on Ramadan. At least they know, and they know the theory anyway. But for Christians, anything is allowed. So really, what it means is that Christian kingdoms have governments that made the law as they went along. So there was a time, in Luther's time, no usury, and then John Calvin came along and said, oh, it's all right if we have low interest rate loans, and you know and I think we are all in the West living through the consequences of all this sort of chopping and changing and yes and no at the same time. And obviously Americans are affected because they haven't got an official religion. And I keep trying to explain to people that, you know, you let's pretend that Americans are Nazis. So they would have an idea of, who they are, the kind of people that who never do X and always do Y. So if Americans were Nazis, they would know they hated Jews. So if Congress came along and passed laws saying, oh, we're going to be nice to Jews now, you have to marry Jews, you have to, whatever, then Americans would go, hey, what's going on? I thought we were supposed to be mean to Jews because we've been doing this for X number of centuries or whatever. This is why religion is so important, even for atheist countries like China. So China, if you ask somebody in the Chinese ruling classes what their moral system is, they say we are we have socialism with Chinese characteristics. They have to say something. It's like, how is your country run? And China, in China, there would be a ready answer. You don't have a ready answer in Russia. You don't have a ready answer in America. Yes, we have a ready answer in Britain, but nobody even, you can't. I mean, actual confirmed Christians are well, very rare, very rare,
In
because
China.
no, I'm talking about confirmed Anglicans in Britain, which is the birthplace of Anglicanism. But
Well,
in
yeah,
China,
they're all leaving. They're all leaving because, well, Christianity, because it started out. Well, I mean, do you have freedom in Christianity or do you not? And look, as soon as you give people freedom to not think the way the state wants them to think, you're going to lose control. I mean, that's why I don't think secular Quranism will work, because it allows people to not be secular Quranists. It allows people to be pagans and Christians and everything.
Yeah,
And
but eventually, yes, but you can't be burning people at the stake. What you can have is a system of laws that says we always do this, we never do that, and once that identity is internalized by a few generations of people who have been subject to it, then it's okay. They become the majority, and the dissenters will find themselves in the minority and know themselves to be in the minority, and they won't test it. I mean, but right now in America, half of you are well, Republicans and half of you Democrats. And the same situation exists in Israel, because about half of them are religious Jews and about half of them are secular Jews. So you have this really unstable situation of 50-50, and 50-50 situations mean that, you are almost honor bound to fight because you think you can win. Because, okay, if you're just 25%, you're outnumbered, and you're going to get hammered if you try to fight the 75%, so you don't bother. So in a way, you do enjoy a kind of stability. It's only when it's 50-50 that both sides think they have to fight, because just to win and become the majority, and lord it over the other lot. And this is what the situation is now. So you can't keep having these culture wars where it's 50-50, because it just makes it really unstable. And that's why you need a religion, or the because it's okay. You will have dissenters, even if you say, "Oh, we're Muslim or Nazi or whatever, whatever, whatever." But at least you have the official religion, and people know it's the official religion, and they will know whether they are in the majority or the minority, and that is what keeps the peace and people in their place. But if you don't even have an official religion, and then people will just do what they like, and you have this really unstable situation. It's not even technical or religious. It's all practical. It's like, yeah, I gave you the example of China. They're all atheists, and they know they have to say that the official moral system of China is socialism with Chinese characteristics, and they have to say, because it's not Soviet socialism, and anyway the Russians gave it up a long time ago. Oh yeah, and Russia doesn't have an official religious system. So Alexander Dugin is the one making it up, and obviously they tried to assassinate him because he was getting too powerful. He was, you know,
they assassinated his daughter, right?
yeah, yeah. But it was meant for him, the car bomb, I think. And also, I guess they wanted to assassinate him for the additional reason of being so attractive to the dissident right in the West. That might be, yet another reason.
Yeah, the whole thing. I don't even know who fucking runs these psyop, these clandestine things anymore. I don't even know anyone in America who even like loves the American government that much anymore and is willing to like destabilize. Where are they getting these agents from? I mean, how many people are left in America who are actually so into America that they're willing to like destabilize other countries in order to prop us up? No one in the left loves the country. All of the dissident right hates the country. The only people who are left who love the country are these middle ground Christian white people, and there's not that many of them left anyway. I mean, first of all, only 60% of the country is white anymore. 30%, 50% of those. So you get rid of 50% of white people as being liberals, and you only have 30% of white people who might be right wing. Maybe 50% of those are dissident right wing people who don't like the US government anymore. So you have like 15% of the population, if not less, who are actually, willing to run the government under this type of like clandestine, let's fuck everybody up type of ideology. How much longer is this going to keep going?
Well, I mean, let's assume that the CIA, run everything because, well, I guess it makes sense that they would be, the ones controlling the media, doing all the bad stuff. But I think even then, we can't assume that all CIA operatives are Democrats, can we? I don't think we can.
No, but somebody look. I don't know where they're getting people from anymore. To like be this kind of faithful, I don't know where they're getting them from anymore.
So I think, okay, this is my hope. Really divide and rule the CIA. I mean, that's how. Okay, it's a grand theory, I know, but that is how you. If you've identified the power behind the throne, so to speak, then well, you can start addressing it, and well, divide and rule the CIA, because and you can only do it by addressing them directly, because it's only when somebody says, "Hey, you, Vincent, you in the, I know, blue shirt or whatever," that you kind of notice. You sit up and take notice. But if they don't talk to you by name, then it's like, oh, well, it's not me. It's nothing to do with me, and that is kind of how it works, because when somebody says help, help, it's like people think, oh, it's not for me, it's for somebody closer to the person, because it's a cry, not in the same street, or not in the same building, or whatever. People just assume it's only when they say help, help, Vincent Bruno, you have to come and help me, then you might do something. And I think psychologically this is what needs to be done. And this reminds me of Andrew Yang. And I forget exactly what he said now, but he said, oh, white men, this and that. And he was a Democrat, and for some reason, all the dissident right were just so wowed by him, that Andrew Yang actually mentioned them, addressed them as a group, talked, acknowledged their existence. And then the next thing, Richard Spencer was saying he'd like to write speeches for Andrew Yang. I don't know if you remember that.
A little bit, yeah.
And this, I think, is key. You have to identify the group that you want to address, and address them again and again until they know that you're talking, to them, and your message is for them, and something is expected of them, and carry on like that. Or if you just go on talking generally, nobody will pick up your message because they don't think it's anything to do with them.
Well, yeah, you have to talk to people.
And,
Look,
and
that's kind of the reason why I mix Noahidism and Zionism in with Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, Christian Science, because my thing is, look, these are people who have an identity. They're isolated because they were different from everyone. But as soon as you mention, okay, they come from small cults. Whenever you mention those small cults, they immediately listen because, it meant a lot in their life, and it's directed at them personally. If you're just talking about Noahide law or Zionism, that's one thing. But once you start mixing it into things that are personal to them as a person or a group, I'm hoping they're more likely for things to connect.
Yeah, and I think the group I'm addressing is really Americans. It's like all the bad stuff is coming from your country, and you're the ones who haven't got an official religion, and this means that your unofficial religion is the pursuit of happiness at the expense of other people and at the expense of other Americans. You don't care about the rest of the world. You don't care about each other, and your civilization is collapsing. So maybe you'd like to, think about whether it would be a good thing to get yourselves an official religion. And if so, what that religion might be, and it can't be Christianity. It can't be Christianity because of all the trouble the founding fathers took in separating the church from their state. So it can't be Christianity. So what else can it be? it can't be Judaism because most of you are not Jews, and Hinduism and Buddhism, well, that's not good enough. It's not even good enough for Asians, so it's not good enough for you. There's only one religion left, and you can interpret it in your own way. And it supports the First Amendment, which is arguably a uniquely American achievement, because freedom of belief was unheard of on the European continent until you guys started it.
Hmm. Well, um,
Oh, yes, and I keep asking you to read the Quran because it's so different from the Torah. Because the Torah is just written in third person, in the once upon a time and whatever. But if you read the Quran, it's like it's God saying, "Yo, you prophet, you reader," and talking to you in the vocative. It's actually addressing the reader. And this is, one of the more interesting things about the Quran, the language, the grammar, how it's constructed. And I think it's actually quite sophisticated. I know most of it is lost on Muslims who don't read it properly, who think it's enough just to be able to say the words in Arabic without knowing the meaning of it. And that's why they're so stupid. They don't really know it. And okay, most people don't like reading scripture, so they don't. I mean, I guess ordinary Jews don't read the Torah, and even people call themselves Christians don't read all of the New Testament. But I think the Quran does reward detailed reading. And if you look for these little clues, it's actually quite interesting in my own view.
well, yeah. I mean, well, the thing about all these religions, even Hindu, nobody's interested in reading their own scriptures. Okay, the thing is that once you start reading your own scriptures, you start disliking your religion.
Yes. Yes, and in Hinduism, there's so much of it in the Mahabharata. I mean, my God, it's so long. Your heart sinks. Okay, the Bhagavad Gita is shorter, and I have it, but I haven't read it. And I mean, the problem with all these other scripture is that they, you know, it's not the supposed word of God. They don't even pretend it is. It's just a storybook, with maybe a few morals here and there, some morality to be extracted, and some wise sayings. And I think the power of the Torah and the Quran is the narrative that it is supposed to be from God. So it's like, okay, even if you don't believe in it, it's like, well, okay, it is claimed that the Torah was given to Moses on Mount Sinai, and it's the oldest recorded scripture, and it's preserved, and the words are the same, and they're not fighting over which version and whatever. And it's the same with the Quran. So they managed to do that. But it's not the same with the New Testament, because the authorship of the New Testament is not divine. And I think that is what gives the Abrahamic religions, Islam and Judaism, its power. And obviously, if you think of law, you can't really have proper laws until you have writing, can you? Because people will have to say, well, the wording of the law, what exactly does it forbid, and eventually you'll have to go and look at, read the wording, and that, I suppose, is the whole point of revealed scripture. So I mean, even the Old Testament refers to the Noahide laws, or the laws of Noah, and I guess that was the oral tradition that wasn't passed on because people just forgot, or didn't carry it out properly. And it's only when it's written down that people are more likely to follow it from generation to generation. In fact, this is what the plebs of Rome demanded that the patricians did. It's like, well, you lot, you've got your libraries and stuff, and we don't even know what our rights are. And so the agreement was that the rights of the plebeians would be carved out in stone in the Roman Forum. So that I think the ten tablets or the 12 tablets of Rome, basically explaining legal procedure and what they were entitled to, what their rights were, and that was how the Roman Republic um, functioned, I suppose, and that was probably what made uh, Rome so effective as a fighting force, because both the patricians and plebs were getting on with each other, well enough to go and conquer other countries. It's only when you don't get on that you don't get anything done, because everything you say will be opposed and undermined by your own people who are supposed to be on your own side, and this I think
Well,
is
yeah, because I mean, you look people improperly. Look, any system, unless you just have some barbaric like system where the people at the top have all the whips and they just are absolutely brutal with their slaves. I mean, any system where there's any kind of oppression or whatever, where you allow any degree of freedom at the same time, eventually the lower classes are going to rebel against you. So either you treat people right or you just totally brutally enslave them so there's just no chance for them to rebel. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it has to be fair enough. It can't be so completely fair that everybody's, happy, because that would be unrealistic. It just has to be fair enough so most people will think, well, this is better than, chaos and disorder. And and be, okay, talking about the Romans. So basically, the plebs, will before they, managed to get their rights, would um, they just have to leave Rome if they thought the patricians weren't treating them right. They would actually have to physically move out, to leave the patricians to clean their own toilets and whatever. And then, then some patrician would go to them and say, "Please come back. We'll give you better terms." And also this idea of Moses leaving Egypt. It is the same thing. The Pharaoh wanted them to stay to build his pyramids and whatever, and Moses said no, but the working conditions are too disgusting. We're off. And of course, the Pharaoh kept trying to stop them, and I mean, there's a song, isn't it? "Let my people go" and all that. Um, but yes, that I mean that so that was the only way people or the the workers, I guess, could make their feelings known. When there were no trade unions and that sort of thing. But yeah, the only way for your country to be better than other countries is the cooperation of the members of your society.
yeah, you have to have, class collaboration. You can't have, you know, people so poor, so miserable, so exhausted, so hateful that they don't even care about your country anymore. I mean, that's what's happening to America. I mean, people are, well, America's a little bit different in that, well, America's just becoming fucked up, and you can't have people so divided like that.
Yeah, because I mean they're not even thinking in these terms. Maybe they've forgotten all these stories. Like the story of the was it Aesop, and I think it's a fable by Aesop about um, the stomach and the limbs of the body, and then the limbs were saying, "Oh, well, you're just a stomach. You don't do anything. You just eat food, well, which we get for you. Who are you? We're not going to give you any food anymore. We go on strike." And then the whole body was weakened. Right? That was a story. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yes. Is that your phone?
It's a doorbell. So don't know what.
There?
It does go on a bit. I'm sorry, but it's been dealt with. So yeah, so all these principles are being have been completely forgotten about. I mean, I know I mean, America was sort of into all the all the Greek and Roman stuff, right? You have towns called Ithaca and New Canaan, and all these um, classical references. But it's not taught now in American schools, I guess, and even what was it, the Noahide laws, Rabbi Schneerson and his thing. I mean, nobody even actually, it's all there if you look for it, but nobody remembers it. So it's not being passed on, and I'm saying it's not being passed on because the institution of marriage has been completely eroded. Because I mean, how can you pass on any traditions or beliefs if if you don't have a family with a head of the family, and children and wife? Because if you think of all these traditions that the Jews are obliged to celebrate, if they're observant Jews, it's just a lot of cooking, right? It's just cooking, and Chinese. Festivals are the same. You basically need a wife to do all the cooking and the cleaning and the whatever. And if you're not married, you can't do it. You can't perform any of these rituals. And if you don't do them, then your culture will be sport and shopping and, I guess, internet and yeah, most people wasting their time online, trying to make friends or whatever. And actually, relationships online are usually well, they take on a different character, don't they? Um, you know, People can be very rude. I mean, so rude that they wouldn't dream of being that rude to people actually, in the same room with them, because violence might ensue, I suppose. And a lot of people think that they've done their political activism just by, posting their hate speech, and obviously that is that's not political activism.
Mhm.
And so I'm just basically saying, there is a problem, and it's not that hard to solve. I mean, just by having a national conversation. I mean, for Americans to say, well, we haven't got an official religion, is that a problem for us? And you don't have to believe in God to have an opinion, because we already know that the Chinese are atheists, but they have a moral system called socialism with Chinese characteristics, because it protects. Well, it protects the members of society from the criminal elements of each other. People who want to murder and steal and cheat and rape and whatever, and also you kind of need to be protected from your ruling classes, because if you don't like gay marriage, if you don't like a lot of the things that they're doing now, um, I don't think the average Americans can say, oh, we're not supposed to be transgender because the Torah tells us not to be. And then I guess Congress will say, well, we're not Jews, are we? And Christians say the same thing, we're not Christians, are we? And Muslims, we're not Muslims, so we don't have to listen to your crap. We'll just keep passing any law and repealing any law that we feel like, because we're Congress and we control the legislature, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm just saying, religion, or an official moral system, if you prefer, is the only means for the average citizen to protect itself, to protect themselves from their corrupt and incompetent ruling classes. It's not something you have for fun. The way some people think, oh, Christianity, it's all about beautiful stone buildings and stained glass and choral music and carols, and it's like, no, that's just you know that's just a pretty bit, but the working parts of it are well, principles, laws, and standards of behaviour.
Yes, well, I wouldn't, I don't expect anything from these people. Well, I've already told you I'm not. I no longer have faith that any of this is going to go anywhere good. I just believe that there's really dark days ahead, and you have to basically, um,
Okay, well, I'm an optimist, obviously, because I think any political activist has to be an optimist. And I'm saying, you just have to connect all the bits. It's like there's somebody at the top and maybe they'll do something, but you have to identify them, and obviously secular Quranism should be of interest to Muslims, should be of interest to social conservatives who are atheists, and who don't like the way things are going, and but at the moment nobody's cooperating, nobody has any connections, they don't want talking, they don't want to be talking about something radical like that, in case people look at them funny or something, because people are afraid of being cancelled. But obviously, dialogue is necessary between the people who hate each other, and it's only when you have a dialogue that ideas develop, and you know what your position is, and maybe what you want the other person to do from you, and then you can begin to negotiate. So I'm still really shocked that after all these years I can't find a single public intellectual prepared to discuss this with me. Even if it's only to slag off secular Quranism. So I told you the story about the Guardian, supposed to be doing a hit piece on me, and then they're not even bothering to do it, giving their usual stupid excuses. Oh, we don't want to spread your nonsense and whatever. It's like, well, actually, there are all these people who are my Facebook friends who actually want the Guardian to say something about it. It's like, how can you. Anyway, I told you the story about this Facebook friend of mine who got in touch with this Guardian journalist, Facebook friend of his, to write a story, and she wanted to, but the editor said no. And I'm saying, well, obviously, all Western media is controlled by the CIA, but I'm just saying, well, maybe not all the CIA are crazy about the liberal agenda, which will result in more immigration, which it's like they don't even care about their own people. It's like, yeah, the working classes are so useless. Let's just replace them with foreign workers.
well, they are useless.
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah. So you make them, you tell them off, you tell them to do better, something like that. You don't just keep replacing them.
well. It's no, but that's what it's too late. It's too late. They're too fucked up. They're too messed up. Nobody wants them.
Okay. Um. Well, and I think it's because all these leaders of these anti-immigration political parties, were just so lazy. It's sort of, oh, these are just sort of unmarriageable men. There's no point talking about uh, education and training with them. We'll just keep blaming the Jews, and everybody will be happy. We don't have to do anything but keep voting for this anti-immigration party and blaming the Jews. And I think that they're paying for that. Whether it's um, got, through divine intervention, divine assistance. It's like, well, if you keep blaming people and saying, you didn't do anything wrong, this is what happens. And oh yes, and not protecting the institutions of marriage and the family, because obviously you need to reproduce and produce all these sort of future workers, and obviously you need to bring them up properly and make sure they're not traumatized and mentally ill, and they pass their exams and they can read and write and do stuff. And nobody's talking about these things because they're so long term, because it takes so long to fix, and that they just can't be bothered to deal with it anymore. I don't know.
Well, people aren't worth it. These people are not worth it. Like that's why I'm telling you, I'm not the only one who went out and tried to talk to white people and realized it's just not worth it. They're not. I don't know what the fuck happened to them. They're all dumb. They're all lazy, and they don't want to be smart, and they don't want to be productive. They don't want that. They don't like. I'm telling you, they're not going to take secular Quranism because this is a new innovative idea, and they're not new or innovative.
No, I know. I understand that. You know that, what was it called, the 80-20 ratio thing? It's
Yeah.
like a lot of life is like that, and I'm happy to assume that 80% of people are just the sheeple, and only 20% you know are capable of independent thought, and we just haven't met them. We haven't met them.
Well, there's very few of them. I think that as society declines, that 80-20,
Becomes
well,
10-90 or something.
yeah, like it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and they're not, they're not, they're not worth it. I've been trying to tell these. I just posted. I'm like, who do you think is? I was telling these white girls that were again about the farts. They just love posting about smelling farts all day. And I told her, I said, excuse me, she's this white woman with a child, unfortunately, and all she does is post this stupid shit. And I said, who do you think is going to win the the war for society? Noahides who are infiltrating the government and setting schools, or you who are shit posting about smelling farts on Facebook? Who is going to affect the world?
Hmm. Well, I just think, if enough people, or just one person doing what the hell they're supposed to be doing, that then it things will begin to improve. But it's like there's supposed to be all these public intellectuals, right? And they're supposed to be concerned about their country, and why can't I have a sensible conversation with them? That's so crazy.
You can't have a sensible conversation with any of these people. They're derelicts. They're derelicts. They're just it's I don't know. It's They can't handle civilization. They can't handle being civilized and still working and being productive. They just life is easy now, so they're just deciding not to think, not to work, not to try, and to just get absorbed in stupid shit.
Yeah.
Okay, like they can't handle it. And it's a genetic thing. I mean, we need people who can handle civilization. We need people who, just because things become civilized doesn't mean that you just totally, you know, let go of seriousness.
Yeah. Yeah. Do I mean, one of the ideas that came to mind is like, let's frighten the immigrants. It's like, well, you're here now, but your DNA is just going to be, global homogenized. It's like, oh yeah, these white people are these, it's their homeland. They were born here. They don't know any better. But you came to this. You made hijrah to Sodom and Gomorrah. So you better do something, or you're even stupider than the locals because you came to this. Well, that's what I thought.
Well, you saw
So,
Justin Trudeau blame the American right wing for Muslims in Canada going against gay education in the schools.
right. Oh, he's so low.
Well,
But then,
leftists. I'm sorry, even leftists. They're retarded. The we already talked about this. I'm glad that Islam is going over to the right wing now. I want the left to get fucked over for what they did for getting in bed with Islam. Good. Let Islam fuck them over now. Let Islam go against all the gays. Let Islam convert all these white young men to Islam so they become fucking radical homophobes that actually have power. You know, a white man who converts to Islam and who's homophobic has a lot of power, especially if he's now taking himself seriously and is involved in the community and is doing what Muslims do, which is infiltrate the government, infiltrate the society seriously. Muslims are very serious people. Um, and good, let them see Muslim white faces going against them that have been converted. Brown Muslims came here, found white men, converted them, and made them twice as homophobic and race and conservative as they were before.
Yeah. Well, I hope, the book helps a little, even if nobody's ever going to read it, you know. I mean, I'll send it to a few people, and maybe even you will have time to read it and
You
say
know,
what you
I
think.
will read it. I mean, yes, but you did get that good review, which was very good. But you know, well,
Well, unless it's
don't
promoted, you
expect anything
won't.
from white right wing men who haven't converted to Islam. Don't expect anything, from them. It's
No, I'm not even expecting people. Okay, I'm kind of aiming towards the Pope of social conservatism, meaning Jordan Peterson, because I can't think of a quicker way of doing it, because he's supposed to be interested in these things, right? I mean, I would if I were in his position, but he's obviously very hostile towards Islam, and he won't even say whether he believes in God or not. It's just like everybody's so retarded. Even the people who are, who've made a kind of living, doing what they're doing. So, you know, oh yeah, and I think white identity is something that white people should discuss, because um, I think white people kind of need to understand that maybe they need a religion, and Christianity is not working. Maybe they need a political ideology, and liberalism is not working. So what are they going to be? I think they should talk about it. I mean, how else are they going to resolve this issue of, what their future is going to be if they don't decide what kind of rules they're going to live by? And it has to be more than just blaming people. They have to work out through their own history how they came to be like this, without blaming anyone, just by referring to historical events. you know, and I would say, yes, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, World War One, World War Two, and hopefully not World War Three.
Well, I'm just waiting for the Noahide laws to become a popular topic because these people are serious. These people don't joke. They have a serious message. They have a program. They have powerful people on their side. They're infiltrating the government. They don't shit post all day. A Noahide is more likely to read your book than an alt right white man, to be honest with you. And
Okay, but can you think of a no hide? I can pester. Alan Cecil has blocked me.
I know everyone's fucking.
But everybody's so neurotic. It's like, ugh.
He hasn't blocked me, but
Yeah, it's like, well, I wasn't even rude to him, you know. I mean, they're very quick to block me. But okay, maybe I can interpret it in a nice way. For me, it's like they have no answer to my suggestion, so they don't want to even talk about it, right? I mean, okay, I can think that. Um, so, well, at least the message is out, but people should. Okay, I think the problem is they don't want to admit that they're wrong, right? That's why they won't, talk about it. And I think there's a very established Jewish concept called shuva, which is repentance. It's like, you know, once you actually do it properly, you will correct yourself. So shuva, it has four stages under Judaism. You have to, I think it's a confession, cessation, uh, restitution, something, and then restitution. So it's like it's such a, a multiple process, so because of so many stages that you're not going to forget. You're not going to forget it that you did wrong. So you have to cease doing the thing after realizing you've done wrong, and then you have to publicly acknowledge that you did wrong, and then you have to begin the process of restitution. So it's like you're not just going to forget about it. I know most people will say, "Oh, I nearly fell over. I hope nobody noticed." you know so but if you don't confess it properly, then it won't take a hold on your mind, and you'll probably do it again because you didn't really learn the lesson properly. you know so I think these uh, you know principles, these Jewish principles, are actually quite useful. This it's like the kind of Day of Atonement thing. It's sort of there to remind them to learn from their mistakes, for God's sakes. So I mean that's why um, Jews are maybe smarter than Christians because they make such a point of learning from their mistakes, even though most of them don't. But Christianity, it's sort of like never admit anything. Well, we did anything wrong, and if anybody tries to tell us that, we burn them at the stake. That's what they do. We shoot the messenger, and then we burn him at the stake.
Yeah, yeah. It's just whatever. I
Well,
really, I mean, yeah. I'm more preparing for like small, like citadel rather than you know some mass awakening because these people are not going to awaken into anything enlightened. They're only going to awaken to what's shit. Because it's just shitty people don't like bright ideas.
yeah, but the thing is, I do believe that most people can be made to believe in anything, and the means for making them do that is the media, right? I mean, we'll just have to, watch TV, listen to the radio, like, or YouTube videos, and they will get it. But obviously, it has to be concerted and focused and organized and everything. But I think it can be understood. I mean, okay, they resisted because they don't want to admit that they were wrong. But once you make the point, I don't see how they can sort of forget it. Okay, the four steps of atonement is step one, regret. Step two, ceasing. Step three, confession and restitution. Step four, resolution. So with all these four steps, if you ever make a mistake and you go through all those four steps, you're not just going to forget about it. And I'm saying, if I had the cooperation of mainstream media, um, it could be done by Christmas. I know I keep saying that, but it's not that hard a message to understand. Because okay, the whole, I mean, that's why I concentrate on the Abrahamic religions, because it's like it's so easy. It's like even atheists know what God is or what He's supposed to be, so you don't have to explain, the whole thing, like some really complicated conspiracy theory. They people already know. The thing is, you can't be an atheist unless you already understand the concept of God. So, all these ideas are already internalized. And because, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have already made it easy for us, and we can refer to all these books which has a greater authority. It's not some stuff we just made up yesterday that nobody has heard of. And if you refer to all these old ideas that have been around for centuries, if not millennia, then the point is more quickly made. Because one of the things that I guess a Christian might say is like, oh well, Christianity is the best religion because we are the ones who have acquired 3 global empires, and we are the most powerful empires on earth. So obviously God supports us. But even from that claim, you can undermine it. It's like, oh well, lots of powerful empires have come and gone. Religious groups are the most powerful and biggest human groups on earth, and they outlast empires. And oh, look at the Jews. They survived. They survived all these ancient empires, Roman Empire, pharaohs. And they're still around, being annoying. Well, oh, Christians, maybe they're extinct because, maybe they don't, none of them really believe that Jesus is God and they only pretend to. Hey, why don't we ask the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury, whether they really believe in God? Why don't we ask them a few questions? And once you do that, it's like, yeah, you can ask them. They're on Twitter. You can tag them and ask them all kinds of questions. They'd notice. Imagine if all the Muslims, asked the same questions of the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury. Imagine if all the Muslims asked Orthodox rabbis, about their religion, all their 36 capital offenses, and what a terrible afterlife they're going to get if they weren't punished in this life for their capital offenses. So it must be that when they get to the other side in their afterlife, they'll have to be executed and then resurrected and executed and resurrected and executed, etc., until they discharge, all their penalties, all their death penalties. And the only way they can escape all those death penalties in their afterlives is to convert to Islam, where they have a much nicer afterlife.
Oh my god. Well, it's just I don't know. I'm very I've been doing this for more than 10 years now, and it's just
Well, I mean,
I don't want to be I don't want people becoming Muslims either. I don't want that either. I mean, well, to be honest, Muslims are more intellectual than the alt-right, definitely. I mean, you can act like, okay, Muslims are, okay, maybe white right-wing men are more intelligent, but they have less substance, whereas Muslim men are less intelligent, but they have more substance. It's a little bit annoying both ways because, Muslim men have more substance, but they're dumb. And they're gonna tell you things like Muslims are good because we do charity. Okay, typically if I was talking to a white right-wing alternative right-wing male, and I said something like, well, Muslims are good because they do charity, they would tell me to shut the fuck up because it's the most stupid thing that you can't get more stupid than that someone's good because they do charity.
Well, I suppose if I were Muslim, I'd say, well, these Muslims are marrying and reproducing and staying together for the sake of their children. So they will at least produce better quality offspring and more of them, while you all just become, childless feminists and incels and gay and not having children, or transgender and definitely not having children because you've destroyed your sex organs. So I suppose I could say that. um and 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 basically, I think marriage is common to all the five world religions. It's like, okay, nobody wants to do it. If you think about it a bit more, it's like, hey, I think I just want to have, enjoy a life of purely recreational sex. Who wants children? And but obviously, according to Immanuel Kant, um, and his principle of universalizability, it's like, well, not everyone can opt out of being parents, because then you wouldn't have enough, uh, in a way, of a labor force, and then it means your government will import immigrant labor, and then they'll start changing your society, and then you'll be complaining about Muslims again.
Yeah, well, it's too late. I mean, at this point, I'm a total accelerationist. Pour the Muslims in. And I wish I would. Erdogan a few years ago threatened to open the floodgates of Turkey and just let all the immigrants from all of Arabia and all those areas just pour into Europe. I wish he would do that. I wish at this point, if I were in charge, I would just mass import Muslims by the millions upon millions and all the most radical ones, and I would encourage them to go against gays and whites and all this other kind of stuff and cause all kinds of problems, because nobody's going to wake up until people are being assassinated in the middle of the street. And even that, it has to be really hardcore. The only thing that would turn things around is if there was like a real white genocide going on, like if like Arabs and blacks and Latinos were just like pouring out, murdering white people every day in numbers, like in the streets pouring red with blood. Then they would wake up. They're not going to wake up to anything else but that.
Hmm. But maybe, people should operate under the principle of, if you can't beat them, join them, which is kind of what you're sort of
Well, no,
indirectly.
but no, but these white people are too fucking shallow to become Muslims. I mean, look, they're not okay. They're not in their own culture being deep. Okay, they're not looking for anything of any depth. They're not looking for depth. And
Mhm.
and there's plenty of things in European and white culture that are deep that you could get involved in if you wanted to.
Mhm.
They don't want to.
Well, perhaps they might change their minds eventually,
But
once you.
we're too late. No, white people have no children.
Hmm. Yeah, but I guess for those who are not past the age of childbearing, they could still do it in theory. Or be encouraged to, school children instead of being taught all that gay stuff. Did I show you? Oh yeah, I posted on Facebook, the sex education book in Australia. Did I? I'll tag you. I mean, it's really quite outrageous, I thought. I mean, I think even a even a gay person would think, oh well, they shouldn't be teaching these things to children in primary school. I mean, it seems to me that the government is saying they're completely useless. We'll just make them gay and trick them into changing their sex, after which they'll be so upset that they'll kill themselves. And that's the idea. Do you think that's really their nefarious plan? we can't be bothered to govern them anymore. They're too much trouble. Can you see your Facebook? Have you gone? Oh, all right. I guess I'll go. I'll go too. And well, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Oleaginous, for saying very useful points about Christianity earlier. Do I know you from somewhere? I think I may know you from somewhere. Again, thank you all for coming by and listening to Vincent and me.